His lawyer's face went white. Completely white, like someone had drained all the blood right out of him. Grant Holloway, the most expensive divorce attorney in the state, the man who never loses, stood there with trembling hands, flipping through documents he clearly did not expect to see. My husband, Derek, sat next to him, and I watched his confident smirk melt away like ice cream on a hot sidewalk. Pure terror replaced it. The man who told me to get out of his house. The man who called our daughter disgusting names. The man who thought he was about to take everything from me. He finally understood. He had already lost. But let me tell you how I got there. 12 hours earlier, I was kneeling on my living room floor in the dark, barefoot, surrounded by paper, bank statements, old closing documents, insurance printouts, trying to keep my hands from shaking loud enough to wake my 8-year-old. Because Derek had given me a deadline, like I was a tenant, 48 hours, to disappear, and he didn't say it like a threat. He said it like a fact, like I was already gone in his mind. But before I take you back to that night, I need you to understand why my skin still goes cold when I think about it. Because the story didn't stay contained inside a courtroom. 3 years later, when I thought the worst was behind us, my phone rang at 6:17 a.m. On a Tuesday that looked ordinary from the outside. Gray dawn, quiet house, Sophie's humidifier humming like a tiny engine keeping her lungs steady. It was Lauren Prescott, and Lauren didn't call people to chat. She called when something was moving. "Rachel," she said, and her voice had that controlled edge I recognized instantly. "I need you to hear this from me before you hear it from anyone else." My stomach dropped. Hear what? A pause. One breath. "The IRS and Derek's former partners have moved forward," she said. "And Derek is asking to meet you, one time, before things become public." My fingers tightened around the phone. "Why now?" I whispered. Lauren's exhale was quiet, almost tired, because he can't control the story anymore, and he knows the truth is coming either way. I stared at Sophie's closed bedroom door and felt the old reflex rise. Fear, bracing, the instinct to shrink. Then Lauren added, softer but sharper, "Rachel, men like him don't ask for meetings when they're at peace. They ask when they're cornered." I didn't answer, because in my body, I was already back in March 2022. Back in the moment, Derek decided to turn my child into a weapon. To explain why Lauren's call 3 years later made my throat tighten, I have to take you back to the night Derek came home early, too early, and ended my life like he was checking something off a list. Thursday, March 3rd, 2022, 6:42 p.m. Our house smelled like chicken soup and eucalyptus rub. Sophie had been coughing all week, the kind of cough that starts small and then turns into a full-body effort. I'd spent the afternoon timing her breathing, watching her chest like it held the answer to whether we'd need the ER. I was wiping the counter when I heard Derek's car in the driveway. My first thought was relief. Maybe he came home to help. Then the front door opened, and he walked in wearing his "I'm in control" face, jaw set, shoulders squared, eyes already distant. He didn't even look at the soup. He didn't even look at me. He just set a folder on the kitchen island like he was dropping keys. "Rachel," he said, calm as ice. I filed. I stared at him. "Filed what?" "Divorce," he said. "It's done. Papers are coming. Grant Holloway is handling it." Grant Holloway. The name hit like a punch because it carried a reputation. The kind of attorney men hired when they wanted the outcome to feel inevitable. My mouth went dry. "Derek, why are you—" He lifted a hand, cutting me off as if my words were background noise. "I want this clean," he said. "I want the house, the cars, the investments, everything's in order. You'll get something reasonable." Something reasonable. Like I was being given a tip. Upstairs, Sophie coughed, and Derek flinched, not with concern, with irritation. "She's awake again?" he asked, as if her lungs were a personal insult. I felt my spine go rigid. "She's sick." Derek's eyes narrowed slightly, and then his voice softened into that fake patience people use when they're about to be cruel. "She's always sick," he said, "and it's exhausting." I heard my own heartbeat in my ears. "Don't talk about her like that." He shrugged. "It's true." Then he said the thing that still makes my hands curl into fists when I remember it. "She's stinky," he muttered, like he couldn't help himself. And you keep coddling it. Not her. I stepped forward so fast the chair legs scraped the floor. Don't you dare! Sophie! Derek called up the stairs. Too loud, too sharp. Come say goodnight. My throat tightened. She needs rest. Derek ignored me and called again, louder, like he was proving he could. Sophie appeared at the top of the stairs in her soft hoodie, hair mussed, eyes sleepy and unsure. She clutched her inhaler like a security blanket. She looked at me first, not him. That small, automatic instinct, mom is safety, made Derek's mouth tighten. He smiled anyway, the performance smile. Hey, he said, sweet and false, come here. Sophie took one hesitant step. Derek's voice dropped. And maybe, shower tonight. You smell sick. Sophie froze. I felt something inside me snap, not loud, not dramatic, just clean. Stop, I said, voice low. Derek looked at me like I was overreacting. I'm just being honest. Honest. That's what cruel people call cruelty when they want to feel righteous. I moved towards Sophie. Go back to bed, baby. Sophie's eyes filled, but she nodded and disappeared upstairs without a sound. Derek watched her go, then turned back to me as if nothing happened. So, he said, tapping the folder, we need to talk logistics. I stared at him. You're divorcing me like it's a meeting. That's what it is, he said. A necessary correction. A correction, like I was a mistake he was fixing. And then, as if the universe wanted to pile on, the doorbell rang. Derek didn't look surprised. He opened the door and stepped aside like he'd been waiting. Marilyn Ashford walked in, wearing a smile that was too bright for the moment, carrying a bottle of champagne, like this was a celebration. I heard, she said, voice delighted. I heard you finally did it. She looked straight at me, up and down, like she was appraising a purchase she regretted. Oh, Rachel, she sighed. I always knew this wouldn't last. I felt my hands start to shake. Marilyn, this is not your choice, she finished, laughing softly. Yes. I know. Derek's hand found Marilyn's shoulder like an alliance. We're keeping this calm, he said, eyes on me. You'll move out, quickly. We'll keep things stable for Sophie. The word stable landed like a loaded gun, because I knew what he was doing. He was already writing the narrative. Rachel is unstable. Derek is the responsible parent. I swallowed hard. I'm not leaving Sophie's home. Derek's smile didn't reach his eyes. It's my home. The sentence had teeth. Marilyn stepped closer, champagne bottle glinting in the kitchen light. 48 hours is generous, she said. Some women get tossed out with nothing. My throat tightened. This is the house my grandmother. Derek cut me off instantly. We're not doing this. Then he leaned in just enough that his voice dropped to a private hiss. 48 hours, he said, or it gets ugly. I stared at him. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the champagne bottle through the window. I wanted to shake him and ask him where the man I married went. But something older and colder rose in me instead. Because before I was a stay-at-home mom timing inhaler doses, I was a forensic accountant, and forensic accountants don't win by screaming. They win by proving. That night, Derek slept like a man who believed the outcome was already signed. Marilyn left, only after posting something online, something vague and venomous about gold diggers and women who forget their place. I didn't even read the comments. I couldn't stomach them. Sophie coughed in her sleep. I sat on the edge of her bed, rubbing her back, whispering, "Breathe with me, baby," while my mind ran through impossible math. How do you leave a house in 48 hours with a child who needs a humidifier, medication, clean air, stability? How do you uproot lungs? At 1:48 a.m., I finally laid Sophie back down and went downstairs on silent feet. The house was dark, except for the faint blue glow of the microwave clock. I opened the kitchen drawer where we kept old documents, the place Derek thought I'd never look because paperwork stressed me out. I pulled out the file box anyway. Closing documents, mortgage statements, tax returns. My hands were steady now, not because I was calm, but because fear had condensed into focus. I told myself, one fact, find one fact that anchors reality. At 2:11 a.m., I found a bank statement that didn't belong where it was. It was folded once, tucked behind a utility bill like a mistake. But Derek didn't make mistakes like that. I unfolded it slowly. The account wasn't ours. Not joint. Not one I recognized. And the numbers? The numbers didn't match the life Derek claimed we had. Deposits that didn't align with his salary timing. Outgoing wires in neat, repeating intervals. Money moving like a heartbeat. I stared at the page until my eyes burned. Then I heard it, soft, almost polite, a cough from upstairs. Sophie, my child's lungs reminding me what this was really about. I grabbed my phone and logged into our insurance portal. I needed to see coverage. I needed confirmation. I needed to know that at least that was stable. The page loaded, and the word on the screen made my stomach drop through the floor. Inactive. I blinked and refreshed. Still, inactive. I felt my pulse roaring in my ears. I clicked details, scrolled, and there it was, in plain, indifferent text. Coverage terminated, effective immediately. I sat so hard the chair legs squealed. Derek hadn't just filed for divorce. He had cut off my daughter's ability to breathe with help. And suddenly, the threat of 48 hours wasn't the emergency. The emergency was oxygen. I ran upstairs, checked Sophie, her breathing shallow, face warm. My hands shook as I lifted her, wrapped her in a blanket, grabbed her inhaler and nebulizer parts, and carried her to the car. I didn't wake Derek. I didn't ask permission. I just drove. The pediatric ER at Oakwood was bright and cold, and crowded with parents who looked like they hadn't slept in days. Sophie's breathing sounded like a tiny engine struggling. She clung to me, small and damp with sweat. At the check-in desk, the clerk typed our information, then paused. Her expression shifted, subtle, but I saw it. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "Your insurance is inactive." My mouth went numb. That can't be right. She clicked again. "It says terminated, effective today." I felt my knees go weak, not because of money, because of timing, because Derek had chosen the moment my daughter was most vulnerable. And then a woman in a navy cardigan stepped in beside the desk with a clipboard and eyes that didn't pity me. They recognized the pattern. "Rachel Bennett?" she asked, voice firm. "Yes." "I'm Mara Ellison," she said, patient advocate. The words should have sounded bureaucratic. Instead, they sounded like a lifeline. Mara looked at the screen, then at Sophie, then back at me. "Tell me exactly what happened," she said. So I did. I told her Derek filed. I told her he gave me 48 hours. I told her he called Sophie disgusting names. I told her the insurance was fine yesterday. Mara didn't gasp. She didn't dramatize. She documented dates, times, status, treatment. "This is punitive," she said, low and certain. "And we're going to treat it like what it is." She printed the termination confirmation, stamped it, added a note about active respiratory treatment, and slid it into a folder like she was handing me a weapon made of paper. "Here," she said. "You take this to your attorney. You file an emergency motion today, and you keep every record." I stared at her, throat tight. Because for the first time since Derek said, "I filed," an authority figure looked at me and didn't see unstable. She saw a mother being cornered, and she opened the first door Derek didn't think I could reach. Before we continue, if you're enjoying the story, please subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time is it there. I see everything. Thank you so much for your support. Sophie was taken back for treatment. A nebulizer hissed. Her small shoulders rose and fell. I sat in that fluorescent waiting room, holding Mara's stamped paperwork, and something inside me hardened into a single, clear thought. If Derek wanted to turn this into paperwork warfare, fine. I could speak that language, and I knew exactly who I needed to call first, because I wasn't going to dig through this alone. At 7:06 a.m., while Sophie slept under hospital blankets, I pulled out my phone and hovered over one name, Dana Whitaker, my best friend, the only person who remembered the old me, the Rachel who could smell fraud the way some people smell smoke. My thumb trembled. Then I pressed call, and as the phone rang, I stared at Mara's stamped document and the hidden bank statement in my bag, and felt the first true open loop tighten into place. If Derek was bold enough to cut off my daughter's insurance, what else was he hiding? And more importantly, What mistake had he made that would finally, inevitably, make Grant Holloway turn white? Dana answered on the second ring. Rach. Her voice was low and already tight with concern. It's early. Is Sophie okay? That question, first, Sophie, was the reason I trusted her with the truth. She's in treatment, I whispered, sitting in the Oakwood ER waiting area with fluorescent light bleaching everything into the same exhausted color. Nebulizer. She's stable. But, Dana, Derek terminated her insurance. Effective immediately. There was a beat of silence so heavy I could hear the distant squeak of a gurney wheel. He did what? Dana finally said, and her tone wasn't disbelief. It was fury sharpened into focus. And he filed for divorce, I said. He gave me 48 hours to leave the house. Another pause, then Dana's voice went cold. Okay, listen, you're not packing today. You're not leaving that house without a plan. And you're not doing this alone. My throat tightened. I found something. What kind of something? I looked down at the bank statement in my bag, folded like a secret that didn't want to be seen. A separate account, I said. Not joint. Deposits don't match his salary. Outgoing wires, structured. Like a system. Dana didn't ask if I was sure. She didn't say, maybe it's nothing. She said, text me photos, every page. Then I'm coming to Oakwood. My hands shook as I snapped pictures under the harsh ER lights. Dana's next words were calmer, like she'd clicked into a professional mode she didn't even realize she still had. Rachel, she said, you were a forensic accountant. You didn't forget how to do this. You just got interrupted by being a good mother. I swallowed so hard it hurt. I can't think, I admitted. Dana's voice softened by half a degree. Then I'll think. You just keep Sophie breathing. At 7:32 a.m., Mara Ellison found me again. Sophie was sleeping now, her breathing steadier under the thin hospital blanket, her tiny chest rising and falling in a rhythm that finally stopped sounding like a fight. Mara handed me a stapled packet with a bright yellow sticky note on top. For court, insurance termination during active treatment, documented by Mara Ellison, patient advocate, timestamp, 03/04/2022, 07:18 a.m. I stared at it like it was sacred. Keep that on you, Mara said. Make copies. Don't hand the original to anyone unless your attorney tells you to. I don't have an attorney, I whispered. Mara's eyes didn't blink. You're going to get one today. Her certainty steadied me more than comfort would have. Then she leaned in slightly. And Rachel, this isn't your fault, but it is your fight now. I nodded, throat tight, because I could feel it too. The moment the tone changed. This wasn't a divorce. This was a man using a child's medical vulnerability as a lever. And people who do that don't stop when you beg. They stop when paper corners them. Dana arrived at 8:11 a.m., carrying 2 coffees and a tote bag like she'd packed for a siege. She hugged me once, tight, no words, then immediately looked past me through the glass at Sophie's bed. She's okay, she asked. Steadier, I said. Dana exhaled. Good. Then she sat beside me in the waiting area and opened her laptop like we were about to audit the universe. Okay, she said quietly, eyes sharp. Show me everything. I slid my phone across with the photos of the bank statement. Dana studied the numbers, her expression shifting the way mine had. Confusion, suspicion, recognition. This cadence, she murmured. It's not payroll. And these wires, they're not random. They're deliberate. She tapped a line item, then another. See how they repeat. Same intervals, same amounts. That's a system. My skin prickled. Derek's consulting business, I said. He always said it was normal. Clients, invoices, straightforward. Dana's mouth tightened. Straightforward people don't hide accounts. She lifted her eyes to mine. Do you have last year's tax return? Yes, I said, and my voice shook. At home. Dana nodded once. We'll pull it. We'll compare reported income to cash flow. We'll find the gap. Then we'll follow it. Follow it. The phrase sent a chill up my spine, because following it meant accepting what it might lead to. Dana kept scanning. And Rachel, this is important. Do not confront him. I won't, I whispered. Dana's gaze held mine. No speeches, no accusations. You act defeated. You act tired. You let him get arrogant. The idea tasted bitter. But it also felt strategic. Okay, I said. Dana's fingers moved fast on her keyboard, building a clean spreadsheet skeleton from a few screenshots, labeling columns, deposit dates, amounts, outgoing wires, payees, memo codes. Then she paused. "What's that payee?" she asked. I leaned closer. A name I didn't recognize. A company, Blue Harbor Strategies LLC. Dana's eyes narrowed. "That's not a vendor. That's an entity." My stomach turned. Dana typed it into a search and pulled up what she could from public databases. "Delaware," she whispered. My skin went cold. Delaware didn't mean automatically illegal, but it did mean something Derek wouldn't voluntarily explain. Dana's voice stayed steady. "Shell companies love Delaware. It's not proof. It's a direction." I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. Mara walked by again, saw Dana's laptop, and didn't ask. She just said quietly, "How's your support?" "Here," I said. Mara nodded once, approving. "Good. You'll need it." We left the hospital at 10:26 a.m. Sophie came home with a nebulizer plan, printed instructions, and a new fear I hated seeing in her eyes. Confusion that adults could be cruel and still call themselves family. In the car, she whispered, "Mom, did I do something wrong?" My chest clenched. "No," I said immediately. "You did nothing wrong. Your body is just working hard." Sophie stared down at her inhaler. "Daddy said I smell sick." Dana's hands tightened on the steering wheel so hard, her knuckles whitened. I forced my voice calm. "Daddy was wrong." Sophie nodded slowly, like she was filing it away the way kids do, quietly, permanently. And I realized something that hit harder than the divorce itself. Even if I won every asset, every order, every motion, I still had to protect my child's sense of worth. Because Derek wasn't just trying to take money. He was trying to teach Sophie that she was a burden, and I would burn down the world before I let him succeed. At 11:18 a.m., we pulled into my driveway. The house looked normal from the outside. White trim, quiet street, a porch swing we'd hung before Sophie was born. Inside, it felt like an enemy camp. Derek wasn't home. He'd left early, like a man who believed his wife would spend the day sobbing. I locked the door behind us. Dana spoke quietly. "First, the documents." I nodded and went straight for the file box. Closing documents, mortgage statements, tax returns, insurance paperwork. Dana moved like she'd done this 100 times, sorting piles, labeling, scanning with a small portable scanner she pulled from her tote. "You carry a scanner now?" I asked, voice thin. Dana didn't look up. "Apparently I do." I almost laughed. It came out like a broken sound. Dana's eyes flicked to me. "Don't fall apart yet. Later. Not now." I swallowed. "Okay." We worked in silence for 20 minutes, broken only by printer hums and the soft click of the scanner. Then Dana stopped. "Rachel," she said. My stomach tightened. "What?" Dana held up a mortgage document and pointed at a line. Source of down payment. Gift, inheritance, $175,000. My throat went tight. "That was my grandmother," I whispered. Dana nodded. "Yes." My hand started shaking. Dana's voice stayed calm. "Do you have the estate distribution confirmation?" I pulled the envelope labeled Estate Distribution from the file box, hands trembling. Inside, exactly what I'd found the night before. The wire transfer confirmation. Date stamped, amount, $175,000. To escrow. Dana stared at it, then at the mortgage line, then at the closing statement. "This is clean," she said quietly. "Traceable? Direct? You can prove the down payment came from your separate inheritance." I swallowed hard. But the deed. Dana was already pulling the deed paperwork. She read it once, then again. Then she looked up. Her face didn't show surprise. It showed anger. "It's in Derek's name only," she said. My stomach dropped, even though I already knew. Dana set the deed down like it was radioactive. "Rachel," she said slowly, "that's not just simpler. That's deceptive titling. That's the kind of thing judges punish when there's proof." My voice cracked. "I signed what he told me to sign." Dana's eyes softened. "Just a fraction." Because you trusted him. I looked down at the wire confirmation. My grandmother's money turned into Derek's weapon, and I felt something solidify inside me. Trust wasn't the weakness. Trust was the thing he exploited. At 12:37 p.m., Dana opened Derek's tax return. We weren't hacking anything. We weren't guessing. We were comparing what he claimed to what his hidden account suggested. Dana typed his reported income into the spreadsheet. Then she entered the deposit totals from the hidden account. She leaned back slightly, and her face changed. "What?" I whispered. Dana's voice was quiet. "The gap is too big." My pulse hammered. "How big?" I asked. Dana looked at the totals again, as if hoping math might suddenly become kinder. "Rachel," she said, "based on this account activity, Derek's actual inflow appears significantly higher than what he reported." My mouth went dry. "How much higher?" Dana didn't dramatize it. She just said it like a fact. "Enough that this isn't a small omission," she said. "This is structured concealment." Structured. The word echoed. Dana clicked into outgoing wires again and began listing payees, Blue Harbor Strategies, LLC. And then, beneath it, other lines that looked like vendor payments, but the memos were strange, consistent, formatted like internal accounting codes. Dana's eyes narrowed. "He's labeling these like business expenses." My skin prickled. "Could it be normal?" I asked, hating how small my voice sounded. Dana's gaze held mine. "Maybe, but if it's normal, he would disclose it." She zoomed in on the memo codes, and there it was again. Repetition, pattern, arrogance. Dana whispered, "This looks like he thinks no one will ever read it." I stared at the codes until my eyes blurred. Then Dana did something that made my stomach flip. She opened a new tab and typed, "Blue Harbor Strategies, LLC address." When the address appeared, my breath caught, because it was an address I recognized. Not from business. From a glossy envelope I'd once seen on Derek's desk and never opened. A luxury building. The kind of place Derek always claimed was wasteful. Dana's voice was flat. "If that's an apartment building..." My mouth went dry. "It is." Dana looked at me sharply. "How do you know?" I swallowed. "I've seen the envelope. Months ago." Dana's expression tightened. "Okay, we don't guess. We prove. But first we need a lawyer who can weaponize this properly." The word weaponize made me flinch. Dana noticed. "I know," she said gently. "I hate it too. But he already weaponized Sophie's insurance. We're just responding with truth. Truth arranged like a blade." At 1:09 p.m., my phone buzzed. A text from Derek. "How's Sophie? Don't make a scene. Keep it calm." The hypocrisy burned. He cut her insurance, then texted like a concerned father. Dana leaned over my shoulder. "Screenshot." I did. Another text came in immediately. "Grant Holloway says if you act unstable, the judge will order an evaluation. Don't embarrass yourself." My throat tightened. There it was. The narrative track. Unstable wife, responsible husband. Dana's face went hard. "He's baiting you." I stared at the screen, heart pounding. Dana's voice stayed steady. "Do not respond. Save it. We'll let an attorney respond." I swallowed. "I don't have..." Dana cut in. "You will. Today." She slid a note toward me with a name she'd already written down. Lauren Prescott. "Call," Dana said. My hand trembled as I held the phone. Then I dialed. Lauren answered on the second ring. "This is Lauren Prescott." I took a breath. "My name is Rachel Bennett. My husband filed for divorce yesterday. He terminated our daughter's medical coverage during active treatment. I have documentation from the hospital and..." My voice caught, but I forced it steady. "I believe he's concealing assets." There was a pause so precise it felt like calculation. Then Lauren said, calm and clipped, "Where are you right now?" "In my home." "Is your child safe?" "Yes." "Good," she said. "Email me proof of insurance termination, the hospital advocate's documentation, and any written threats." "I have texts," I said. "Perfect," Lauren replied, and the word felt like a door unlocking. "Now listen carefully. Do not leave the home because he told you to. Possession is not ownership. Intimidation is not a court order." My chest tightened. Lauren continued, "I can meet you at 4 p.m. Bring your documents. Bring your spine." Then she added, like she was already anticipating Derek's next move. And Rachel, from this moment on, your power is calm. In court, boring is deadly. She hung up. I stared at my phone. Dana watched me closely. What did she say? I swallowed. 4 p.m. Dana nodded once. Good. Now we make a clean packet. We spent the next hour printing and organizing like we were building a case file in a crime show. Except it wasn't TV. It was my life. At 2:46 p.m., I slid Mara's stamped ER documentation into the folder. At 2:49, I added Derek's texts. At 2:55, I added the wire confirmation for the $175,000 down payment. At 3:02, Dana attached a preliminary spreadsheet showing income discrepancy and the repeated wires to Blue Harbor. I stared at the stack and felt something unfamiliar underneath the fear, momentum, because for the first time, I wasn't reacting. I was assembling. And Derek, who thought I was packing boxes, had no idea I was packing evidence. At 3:38 p.m., the front door opened. Keys, footsteps, Derek. My pulse spiked. Dana closed the laptop quietly and slid it aside. I stood at the kitchen island, face neutral, hands still. Derek walked in and froze for half a second when he saw Dana. Then his mouth formed a polite smile. Performance mode. Dana, he said, didn't expect company. Dana's voice was calm. Rachel needed support. Derek's eyes flicked to me, then to the folder on the counter. What's that? He asked casually, but his gaze was sharp. I forced my voice soft. Just medical paperwork. Derek's expression relaxed. Barely. Good, he said. Keep it simple. We don't need drama. Drama. The word he used to describe consequences. Then he leaned in slightly, voice dropping. Rachel, he murmured. Grant says you should be careful. Judges don't like unstable women. I didn't respond. I just nodded once. Small, like I believed him. Derek smiled, satisfied, and walked toward his office. And as he passed, I caught the faintest thing, a smell that wasn't his usual cologne. Something sweeter, something expensive, something that didn't belong in our home. Derek closed his office door. Dana's eyes met mine. Her voice was a whisper. Did you smell that? I swallowed. Yes, I whispered back. And in that moment, the Delaware LLC stopped feeling like a random entity. It started feeling like a doorway to a life Derek had been funding while he told me there was no room left for us. I looked down at the folder we'd built for Lauren. Then I looked at Derek's closed office door. And I realized the next phase wasn't just proving he was cruel, it was proving he was lying, on paper, in numbers, in structure. Because a man who hides money this carefully is never hiding only money. Lauren Prescott's office didn't feel like a place where people begged. It felt like a place where people made decisions and lived with them. The waiting room was clean and quiet, a little too cold, as if warmth might blur judgment. Dana sat beside me, posture straight, eyes alert. I kept my folder clutched to my chest like it was the only solid thing left in my world. At 4:01 p.m., Lauren opened the door herself. She didn't smile. She didn't offer small talk. She looked at my face, then at my hands, then at the folder. Rachel, she said, come in. Her office was functional. A desk, 2 chairs, a legal pad, a framed bar certificate. No inspirational quotes, no soft lighting. It was a room built for clarity. Lauren sat down and tapped her pen once. Start from the beginning. Timeline. Short sentences. So I did. I told her about March 3rd, the folder on the counter, the 48 hours, the insults directed at Sophie. The moment I checked the insurance portal and saw inactive, Lauren didn't flinch when I described what Derek said to my daughter. She just wrote it down, date, time, exact words. Then she held out her hand. The hospital documentation. I slid Mara's stamped packet across the desk. Lauren read it once, then looked up. Good. Not sympathy, not pity. Validation. Lauren flipped to Derek's texts. Her jaw tightened slightly when she read, Judges don't like unstable women. Classic, she murmured. He's setting a narrative track. Then she looked at me. Here's what matters. The judge doesn't care about vibes. The judge cares about patterns, documentation, and harm to the child. My throat tightened. He cut her coverage. Lauren nodded. And we're going to make that decision cost him. She opened her legal pad and began outlining steps like a map. Tonight, she said, we file an emergency motion, temporary orders, immediate reinstatement of Sophie's medical coverage, retroactive, prohibition on unilateral changes, and a request for stability in the home. I swallowed. He said the house is his. Lauren's eyes stayed flat. Possession is not ownership. Intimidation is not a court order. You don't leave because he told you to. Dana exhaled through her nose, like she'd been holding something in. Lauren turned a page. Now, you said you believe he's concealing assets. I slid Dana's preliminary spreadsheet across the desk. Lauren studied it in silence, her pen tapping once, then stopping. Where did you get this statement? She asked, pointing to the folded bank page. It was in our kitchen drawer, I said, behind a utility bill. Lauren's gaze sharpened. Not hacked, not stolen, found in a shared household file. Yes, Lauren nodded once. Good, that matters. She leaned back slightly. Do you know why men like this cut insurance? I swallowed. To pressure me. Lauren's eyes held mine. Yes. And because they think you'll crumble and agree to a settlement that looks generous but locks you into poverty. Dana's mouth tightened. He already offered an agreement. Lauren looked at Dana. Of course he did. It's usually the same structure. Reasonable on paper, devastating in reality. Then Lauren looked back at me. Here's the counterintuitive part. You don't fight him emotionally. You let him think you're losing. You let him get comfortable. My skin prickled. Comfortable? Lauren's voice was calm. Arrogance makes people sloppy. Sloppy makes paper trails. I stared at her. Lauren continued. Tomorrow morning, we'll likely get a hearing. Judges act fast when a child's medical care is threatened. My heart thudded. Tomorrow? Lauren nodded. Which means tonight, you do 3 things. Keep your home calm, keep Sophie stable, and document every single interaction. I swallowed hard. He's already threatening evaluations. Lauren's expression didn't change. Let him. If he pushes that narrative, we respond with stability, records, and cooperation. Boring is deadly. We left Lauren's office at 5:36 p.m. with action items, a filing plan, and a feeling I hadn't had since Derek said, I filed, structure. On the drive home, Dana kept both hands on the wheel. He's going to hate this, she said quietly. I stared out the window. He doesn't know yet. Dana shook her head. He'll feel it. She was right. Men like Derek could feel control slipping the way animals sense storms. They didn't need proof. They needed the shift in your posture, and my posture had changed. That night, Derek performed domestic normalcy like a man rehearsing for court. He asked Sophie, "How are you feeling?" in a voice that sounded concerned enough to record. Sophie looked at me before answering. Okay? Derek smiled like that was the right line. He glanced at me. See? She's fine. Then he leaned down and kissed Sophie's forehead, lingering just long enough to look like a father. Then he stood and turned to me. Rachel, he said calmly, don't do anything stupid. The sentence carried a warning. I'm not, I said softly. Derek's eyes narrowed slightly. Good, because Grant says if you push, we'll ask the judge for an evaluation. And you don't want that, do you? I kept my face neutral, exactly like Lauren coached. No, I said quietly. Derek's mouth twitched with satisfaction. He walked toward his office, then paused and looked back. And remember, he said, you have 48 hours. I nodded, defeated, small, harmless. He believed it. He closed his office door. Dana texted me from the guest room. Don't move. Let him think you're done. I stared at the message and felt the bitterness in my mouth. Let him think I'm done, because the truth was, I was just starting. At 9:14 p.m., Lauren emailed, filed, hearing likely tomorrow morning. I read it twice. Then I opened Dana's spreadsheet again. The hidden account, the repeated wires, Blue Harbor Strategies, LLC. Something in my chest tightened. Because if Derek was moving money like that, it wasn't just a private lie. It was a system. And systems have origins. I went downstairs quietly and pulled the file box out again, searching not for emotions but for paper, closing documents, mortgage statements, tax returns. Then I found it. A mortgage application page with a line I'd never noticed before. Employer, business entity, Ashford Consulting, partners related, entity, Blue Harbor Strategies, LLC related entity. I stared until my vision blurred. Dana appeared in the doorway, barefoot, face tense. "What?" she whispered. I held up the page. Dana's eyes scanned it fast. Her face changed. "Okay," she whispered. "This is bigger than an affair fund." My throat tightened. "What do you mean?" Dana lowered her voice. "Related entity means it touches his business. Not just you, not just the marriage." I stared at the words again, because Dana was right. If Blue Harbor was related to his business, then hiding it wasn't just cheating in a divorce. It was misrepresentation. To partners, to banks, to taxes, to anyone who relied on truthful numbers. And suddenly the stakes expanded, quiet but enormous. At 11:02 p.m., I checked the insurance portal again. Still inactive, because the emergency order hadn't been signed yet. Sophie coughed in her sleep. My body tightened. I sat at the edge of my bed and stared at the dark like it could answer. How far would Derek go? He'd cut coverage. He'd threatened evaluations. He'd tried to force me out. What was next? Dana whispered from the doorway. "Rachel, you need sleep. Tomorrow is court." I nodded, but sleep felt impossible, because tomorrow wasn't just about insurance. Tomorrow was the first test of whether Derek's story could be broken, whether the judge would see cruelty as cruelty, whether paper could beat charm. I lay down beside Sophie and listened to her breathe, and in the dark, I made myself a promise. If Derek wanted war, I would fight like the woman he married before he decided I was harmless. At 6:09 a.m., my phone buzzed. A text from Derek. "Don't embarrass yourself today. Judges can spot instability." I stared at it, heart pounding. Dana's voice came from the hallway, quiet. "Screenshot." I did. Then I typed nothing, because my silence wasn't surrender. It was strategy. And in a few hours, Derek would walk into a courtroom believing he still controlled the narrative, not realizing the first stamped document in my folder was already aimed at his throat. The emergency hearing was scheduled for 9:00 a.m. the next morning, which meant I was awake at 4:58, sitting on the edge of my bed in the dark, listening to Sophie breathe like it was the only sound that mattered. Her humidifier made that soft, steady hum, like a tiny engine refusing to quit. I kept replaying Derek's text from 6:09 a.m. Judges can spot instability. He wanted me to walk into court already cracked. He wanted tears, anger, a raised voice, anything he could point to and say, "See, that's who she is." So I did the opposite. I showered. I dressed in plain clothes. I packed Sophie's meds like I was preparing for weather, not war. Dana arrived at 7:21 with 2 coffees and a face like she'd slept in armor. Lauren met us outside courthouse security at 8:38, carrying a thin folder that looked too small to hold my entire life. But Lauren's confidence didn't come from the size of a folder. It came from what was inside it. Stamped proof, a child's medical vulnerability, a timeline, and a judge who didn't have patience for theater. Lauren looked at me once, quick and assessing. "Remember?" she said. "Neutral face, short answers. Let him be the one who looks aggressive." My mouth was dry. "Okay." Dana squeezed my elbow. "Boring," she whispered. "Deadly." I nodded like I understood. I didn't. Not yet. Outside courtroom 4B, Derek stood with Grant Holloway like they belonged there. Derek wore a suit that screamed money, and he held his posture like a man who believed the judge would naturally side with him. Grant Holloway was exactly what his reputation promised. Silver hair, smooth smile, eyes that never warmed. And Marilyn, of course Marilyn, sat behind them like it was a show. She wasn't holding champagne this time. She was holding her phone, angled just slightly like she was ready to text someone the good news. Derek's eyes flicked to me. He gave me a smile that looked almost kind. A performance smile. For the clerk, for the hallway, for any invisible audience. Then his gaze dropped to Lauren's folder, and I saw the smallest tightening around his mouth. He didn't know what was inside, and that bothered him. Grant's eyes slid to Lauren. "Prescott," he said, voice polite and sharp. Didn't realize you were taking these kinds of cases. Lauren didn't blink. Didn't realize you were defending cutting off a child's medical coverage. Grant's smile held, but it thinned. Derek's jaw flexed. Marilyn's eyes narrowed. We were called in at 9:06. Courtrooms are smaller than people think. No dramatic music, no cinematic lighting, just fluorescent honesty. Judge Katherine Monroe sat at the bench with an expression that didn't invite charm. She glanced at the docket, then at us. Emergency motion regarding medical coverage, she said. Proceed. Grant stood first. Your Honor, he began, smooth as oil. My client has been subjected to an emotional campaign designed to... Lauren stood immediately. Your Honor, she said calmly, this is not a campaign. This is a documented termination of a medically vulnerable child's insurance coverage during active respiratory treatment. Judge Monroe's eyes sharpened. Mr. Holloway, she said, is the coverage terminated? Grant's smile didn't move, but his voice tightened. Your Honor, the coverage is tied to my client's employment. It's complicated. Judge Monroe didn't blink. Is it terminated? Grant paused, half a second too long. Then Derek spoke, trying to sound reasonable. Yes, he said, but it wasn't meant to harm anyone. It was... Judge Monroe cut him off with a raised hand. Mr. Ashford, you will speak when addressed. Derek's mouth closed. Lauren placed Mara Ellison's stamped documentation on the clerk's table. This is documentation from Oakwood Pediatric ER, Lauren said. Timestamped. It confirms insurance termination status at intake and active respiratory treatment that same morning. Judge Monroe read silently. I watched her face, not for emotion, but for judgment. A tightness formed at her jawline, not anger, something colder, disapproval. Judge Monroe looked up. Mr. Ashford, she said, did you terminate coverage during active treatment? Derek swallowed. I didn't know she was going to the ER. Lauren's voice stayed calm. Because he doesn't monitor her care, Your Honor. Mrs. Bennett does. Grant tried to recover. Your Honor, this is temporary. It can be reinstated. Judge Monroe's gaze snapped to him. Then why wasn't it reinstated immediately when he learned his child required care? Silence. Derek's face tightened. Because my attorney... Judge Monroe held her pen still. This court does not reward punitive behavior. Not when a child's health is involved. Her eyes moved to me. Mrs. Bennett, she said, are you able to maintain the child's care if coverage is restored? My throat tightened. Lauren's hand moved slightly. A reminder, short answers. Yes, Your Honor, I said. Judge Monroe nodded once. Then she looked at Derek again. Temporary order, she said. Mr. Ashford will reinstate Sophie's medical coverage immediately. Retroactive. You are prohibited from making unilateral changes to coverage or essential support. Derek's head jerked slightly. Grant inhaled, controlled. Judge Monroe continued, voice firm. Mrs. Bennett will remain in the marital residence pending further proceedings. Stability for the child is paramount. Marilyn's posture shifted. Small, but real. Derek's jaw clenched. Judge Monroe added, and Mr. Ashford, do not use legal threats to intimidate. Do not attempt to force her out. Any violation will be addressed. The word addressed landed like a warning that didn't need volume. Grant stood. Your Honor. Custody. Judge Monroe cut him off. This hearing is limited in scope. Medical coverage and stability. You will address custody in the scheduled dissolution hearing. Her eyes moved over both attorneys. Anything else on the emergency motion? Lauren said. No, Your Honor. Grant forced a smile. No, Your Honor. Judge Monroe's gavel came down, and the first door locked behind Derek. Not the full victory, not yet, but proof that the court was not automatically his stage. In the hallway, Derek moved fast, catching up to me like he needed the last word to breathe. Happy, he hissed under his breath, keeping his face pleasant for anyone watching. Lauren stepped between us without hesitation. Back up, she said, voice low. Grant's hand closed around Derek's arm, not protective, controlling. Not here, Grant murmured, his smile still plastered on. Derek's eyes burned at me anyway. You're embarrassing yourself, he said. This isn't going to go how you think. Lauren's voice was flat. It already didn't. Derek's mouth tightened. Marilyn walked past us with her phone in her hand and leaned in just enough to let her poison land quietly. "You can't win, Rachel," she whispered. "He has the money. He has the lawyer. You have moods." Then she smiled and walked away like she'd said nothing at all. Dana exhaled slowly behind me. Lauren didn't watch them leave. She watched me. "Good job," she said simply. "You stayed boring." My chest felt tight. "I didn't feel boring." Lauren nodded. "Good. Feeling doesn't matter. Conduct does." Dana's voice was low. "What's next?" Lauren's eyes sharpened, and for the first time I heard the steel underneath her calm. "Now," she said, "we make him disclose what he's hiding." Back at my house at 11:43 a.m., it looked the same from the outside, but inside, it felt different, like the walls had stopped closing in. Sophie sat on the couch in her hoodie, nebulizer mask fogging slightly as she breathed. When I told her her coverage was coming back, her shoulders loosened like she'd been holding tension she didn't have words for. "Really?" she asked. Quiet. "Really?" I said, kissing her forehead. "You're covered." Sophie looked up at me. "Does Daddy have to be nice now?" My throat tightened. I chose honesty she could handle. "Daddy has to follow rules," I said, "and so do we." Sophie nodded like rules were something she could trust. Dana watched Sophie for a moment, then leaned close to me and whispered, "We have to keep that promise." I nodded once. Then I looked at Lauren's business card on my counter and felt the next phase forming. Because the emergency hearing wasn't the war, it was the first proof Derek could bleed. And if he could bleed, he could lose. At 1:06 p.m., Lauren called. "I'm serving financial disclosure demands," she said. "Full statements, full business records, tax returns, credit cards, entity lists. If he lies, we catch him. If he hides, we subpoena." My pulse quickened. "How long?" "Depends on how arrogant he is," Lauren said. "Some men disclose quickly because they're clean. Others stall because they're not." Dana's voice carried from the kitchen table where she'd opened her laptop again. "He's stalling." Lauren heard it. "That your friend?" "Yes," I said. "Good," Lauren replied. "Tell her to keep building your internal map quietly. We'll use it to target discovery." After the call, Dana slid into the chair and pulled the spreadsheet back up. "Okay," she said. "Step 1, reconcile reported income with actual cash flow." She typed, clicked, filtered. I watched her face change the way it did when a number didn't behave. Dana pointed to the deposits in the hidden account. "They're not random," she said. "They're structured, and they're larger than his disclosed income would justify." My stomach tightened. "So he's lying." Dana's voice stayed calm. "So he's concealing. The motive is what we prove later." She clicked into the outgoing wires. Blue Harbor Strategies LLC appeared again, like a recurring shadow. Dana pulled up the public record she'd found earlier. Delaware formation. Registered agent. The address. She circled the address on her screen. "That building," she said quietly. "Luxury, not business looking." My skin prickled. I remembered that sweet, expensive scent on Derek's jacket when he came home the night before. I didn't say it out loud. I didn't need to. Dana's eyes narrowed as she stared at the address. "Next step," she said. "We trace payments. We find what Blue Harbor is paying for." She began listing the evidence ladder like Lauren's legal pad had grown a twin in Excel. Factual inconsistency. Deposits don't match salary document. Hidden bank statements. Record TAR timestamp. ER insurance termination. Plus judge order. Trace. Repeated wires to Blue Harbor. Witness. Who knows what Blue Harbor is? Accountant. Assistant. Smoking gun. Explicit email. Invoice. Tying personal spending to business coding. My throat tightened when she said witness. "Who would know?" I asked quietly. Dana didn't look up. "Someone inside his office." The words landed heavy, because I knew exactly who that could be. Not a partner, not a client. Someone Derek treated like furniture. His executive assistant, Janet Miles. I'd met Janet dozens of times. She was always polite, always quiet, always watching. And suddenly, I remembered something I'd never registered as important before. Janet's eyes. Once, just once, when Derek snapped at me in the lobby. Not sympathy, not pity, Recognition, like she'd seen the pattern. Dana's voice pulled me back. "Rachel," she said, "we don't contact anyone yet. Not directly. We let Lauren do formal requests. You never want this to look like harassment." I nodded. "Okay," Dana clicked again. "Also," she said, "we locked down the inheritance trace." She opened the closing documents we'd scanned. There it was again. Source of down payment, gift, inheritance, $175,000. My grandmother's money. My stomach twisted. Dana looked at me. "This matters because it's clean and moral. Judges understand it. It's not, he said, she said. It's a wire." I stared at the number until my eyes burned. "I trusted him," I whispered. Dana's voice softened slightly. "And now you're correcting that." At 3:19 p.m., Derek came home. I heard the front door, keys, footsteps, and then his voice, too loud, too controlled. "How was court?" he asked, like it was small talk. I didn't look up from Sophie's medication schedule. "Fine," I said. Derek paused. I felt his eyes on my face, trying to read reaction. When he didn't get one, he shifted tactics. He walked into the living room and crouched beside Sophie, voice suddenly syrupy. "Hey, kiddo," he said. "Feeling better?" Sophie glanced at me first. Always me first. She nodded. "A little." Derek smiled like a man performing fatherhood. Then he stood and looked at me. "You didn't have to make it dramatic," he said quietly. I kept my voice soft. "I didn't." Derek's eyes narrowed. "I spoke to Grant," he said. "He says you're going to start making accusations." I shrugged. "Small. I'm just following what the judge said." Derek leaned closer, and his voice dropped. "Private. Don't dig," he murmured. "You're going to hurt yourself." My skin went cold. It wasn't a warning out of concern. It was a warning out of fear, because men don't tell you not to dig unless there's something buried. Dana stood in the kitchen doorway, invisible to Derek from where he was. Her eyes met mine over his shoulder, and she mouthed two words, silent and clear. "He knows." My pulse hammered. Derek straightened, smoothing his suit like nothing happened. "I'm going to my office," he said, calm again. "Try to keep things stable." Stable. That word, always used like a weapon. He walked away and closed his office door. The lock clicked, and in that small sound, I felt the next open loop tighten. If Derek was nervous enough to warn me not to dig, then digging was exactly where the truth lived. Dana whispered, "Tonight we map Blue Harbor deeper." I swallowed. "How?" Dana's gaze flicked to the closed office door, then back to me. "We don't go through his things," she said softly. "We don't break rules." She tapped the spreadsheet. "We follow the money we already have. We find patterns. And we wait for him to slip." My chest felt tight with a new kind of fear, not fear of losing, fear of what we were about to find, because I could feel it now. This wasn't just a divorce man trying to be cruel. This was a man running a system. And systems always have a weak point. They always have someone inside who gets tired of lying. Dana's fingers hovered over her keyboard. "Rachel," she whispered, "tell me the name of the person who sees everything in his office." My throat tightened, and before I could stop myself, the name left my mouth like the truth forcing its way out. "Janet Miles." Dana nodded slowly, eyes sharpening. "Okay," she whispered. "That's the direction." Then Sophie coughed softly in the living room, and the sound snapped everything back to what mattered. Not revenge, not pride, protection. And as I watched Derek's office door, closed, locked, hiding whatever he thought was safe, I realized something terrifying and clarifying at the same time. The next phase wasn't going to be emotional. It was going to be procedural, and somewhere inside Derek's own system, the thing that would finally make Grant Holloway turn white was already waiting. The first thing Derek did after the emergency order wasn't apologize. It wasn't even pretend. It was tighten the cage. He started moving through the house like a man documenting his own innocence, speaking a little louder when Sophie was nearby, asking questions in a concerned father tone that sounded rehearsed, and watching me with that quiet, predatory patience he used when he wanted me to crack first. And I could feel it in my body, every muscle waiting for the next blow. But Lauren had already told me what Derek didn't understand. The judge wasn't listening to his voice. The judge was listening to his pattern. So Dana and I built a pattern that would swallow his story whole. Friday, March 4th, 2022, 9:22 p.m. Sophie was asleep. The humidifier hummed. The house was quiet, in the way it only gets quiet when a child finally stops coughing. Dana sat at my kitchen table with her laptop open, a yellow legal pad beside it, and a mug of coffee she'd reheated twice. I sat across from her with a stack of scanned documents like I was back in my old job, only this time the fraud wasn't on a client's books. It was in my marriage. Dana tapped the spreadsheet. "Okay," she said, voice low. "Evidence ladder, step by step. No leaps." She wrote the first rung on the pad. 1. Inconsistency. "Your husband's disclosed income doesn't match his actual inflows," she said. "That's our starting crack." She wrote the second rung. 2. Document. "The hidden bank account statement," she said, "found in a shared household drawer. Not hacked, not stolen. That matters." Third rung. 3. Record. "The hospital documentation showing insurance termination during active treatment," she said. "Stamped, time-stamped, credible." Fourth rung. 4. Trace. "The repeated wires to Blue Harbor Strategies, LLC." Dana circled Blue Harbor so hard the pen nearly tore the paper. "Now," she said, "we widen. We find all accounts connected to this system." My stomach tightened. "How?" Dana didn't look up. "We start with what we can lawfully see: tax returns, disclosed statements, credit reports if Lauren can compel them, and we use patterns." I swallowed. "Patterns like what?" Dana pointed to the deposit cadence on the hidden account. "See these," she said. "They're structured. They're not random client payments. They move like someone managing a stream." She scrolled. "And these wires, same intervals, same memo style, same destination. Blue Harbor." Again, like a shadow that refused to leave, Dana opened a browser and pulled public filings for Blue Harbor Strategies, LLC, Delaware Formation, registered agent. And then the address, the luxury building. Dana stared at the address, then looked at me. "This isn't a warehouse. This isn't an office park. This is residential." My throat went dry. "I've seen mail with that address," I whispered, "on his desk." Dana's eyes sharpened. "Then he's been hiding it in plain sight." I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. Because the worst part wasn't that Derek was cheating. The worst part was realizing how calmly he must have planned all of it. The next morning, Lauren called at 8:16 a.m. "I served financial disclosure demands," she said. "Full bank statements, full business records, entity lists, credit cards, QuickBooks, all of it." My pulse tightened. "How long until they respond?" "Depends," Lauren said. "If he's clean, he'll comply. If he's not, he'll stall." Dana, sitting beside me, mouthed, "Stall." Lauren continued. "Also, standard financial restraining provisions are in place. No dissipation, no unusual transfers. If he moves money now, we can argue consciousness of guilt." My stomach flipped, because Derek had already been moving money. He just hadn't expected anyone to read the rhythm. Lauren's voice lowered. "Rachel, I need you calm. He may try to provoke you into doing something impulsive." "I won't," I said, but my voice shook. Lauren didn't soften. "Don't just promise. Build the behavior. Sleep, eat, document. Be boring." Then she hung up. Dana looked at me. "We're close enough now that he'll feel it." I swallowed. "Then he'll get worse." Dana nodded. "Yes, which is why we keep our hands clean and our records sharp." Sunday, March 6th, 2:03 Emmy. It happened exactly the way the premise of my life with Derek always happened. He tried to humiliate me when he thought he was safe. Marilyn came over unannounced. She didn't knock like a guest. She walked in like a landlord. She held her phone out like a weapon and read something out loud, smiling. "People are saying you're unstable," she announced cheerfully. "People are saying Derek should have custody. People are saying you're, what was it? A gold digger with a sick kid." My stomach turned. Dana stood near the kitchen doorway, silent, watching like she was studying a predator. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I kept my hands still, my face neutral. "Marilyn," I said softly, Please don't speak about Sophie like that. Marilyn laughed. Oh, I'm not speaking about her. I'm speaking about you. And then she did the thing Derek always did. She performed sweetness while being cruel. I just want what's best, she said, voice syrupy. And Derek is stable. Derek is capable. Derek has money. Dana finally spoke, calm and flat. Money doesn't keep a child breathing. Marilyn's eyes flashed. And in that flash, I saw it again. The mask slipping for half a second. Then it returned. Marilyn lifted her phone and tapped the screen. I'm posting something later, she said, smiling. Just a little reminder of who's who. She turned and left, satisfied. Dana waited until the door shut. Then she looked at me. Screenshot anything you see online, she said. Every post is a record. Every smear is a pattern. I nodded. My throat burned, not from tears, from pressure, because I could feel it now. Derek wasn't just trying to win. He was trying to erase. That night, at 11:47 p.m., while Sophie slept, Dana pulled up something I hadn't allowed myself to look at yet. Brielle Carter. We can't use her as the main argument, Dana said carefully. Court isn't a morality show, but we can use her to trace spending. My stomach tightened. How do we even prove she exists in this system? Dana didn't look up. We don't start with her name. We start with the address. She typed the luxury building address into a search, then cross-referenced it with known leasing companies, property managers, and, most importantly, vendor payments. One vendor name kept repeating in Derek's business statements. A property management company. Dana pointed. That looks like rent processing. I swallowed. For that building? Possibly, Dana said. We need confirmation. But if Blue Harbor pays a property manager connected to that building, she didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to, because my body already knew where that road led. Tuesday, March 8th, 10:19 a.m. I saw Brielle for the first time, not on social media, not as a rumor. In the real world, Lauren had asked me to drop off a signed consent form at Derek's office, something routine, something boring. She didn't want me to contact anyone inside. She didn't want me to linger. Go in, she said. Drop it. Leave. No confrontation. So I went. Derek's office lobby smelled like expensive cologne and polished surfaces. The receptionist smiled too brightly, the way people do when they've heard a story about you already. I kept my face neutral, the folder tucked under my arm. Then the elevator opened, and a woman stepped out wearing a coat too tailored to be practical, hair perfect, a gold chain necklace catching the light like it was designed to be noticed. She didn't look tired. She didn't look worried. She looked entitled. And when she walked across the lobby toward Derek's hallway without checking in, without hesitating, without asking permission, I knew. Because women don't walk into a man's office like they own the place unless he's been telling them they do. She glanced at me. Her eyes flicked over my plain sweater, my flat shoes, the faint dark circles under my eyes. Then she smiled, not friendly, smug, like she was looking at someone she'd already replaced. My stomach dropped. Dana's words echoed. We don't start with her name. We trace spending. But standing there, watching her disappear into Derek's private hallway, I realized something else. This wasn't just betrayal. This was investment. Brielle wasn't a mistake. Brielle was a line item. I dropped the form, turned around, and left before my body could do something emotional, because Lauren was right. In court, my feelings were noise. But the money was language. Back at home, Dana was waiting at the table. She took one look at my face. You saw her. I nodded. Dana's eyes narrowed. Okay, that confirms the motive track. Now we prove the payment track. She pulled up the spreadsheet again and started building the next rung. 5. Witness. Someone has to know, she said quietly. Someone sees invoices. Someone sees transfers. Someone sees Derek coding things. I stared at the screen, and the name appeared again, uninvited, Janet Miles. Dana leaned back, exhaling. We are not contacting her, she said, firm. Lauren handles that. If Janet helps, it has to be clean. Clean, I whispered. Dana nodded. Legal. Thursday, March 10th, 6:28 p.m. The first wave of disclosures arrived. Grant Holloway's package, thin, polished, confident. It came with a cover letter that made my skin crawl. In the interest of transparency, Dana opened the PDF on her laptop and started scrolling bank statements. Some, not all. Business summaries, high level. A financial affidavit that looked tidy on the surface. Dana's eyes moved like a scanner. Then she stopped. "Where's Blue Harbor?" she asked quietly. My stomach tightened. "What do you mean?" Dana scrolled again. Entity list, accounts, disclosures. Blue Harbor wasn't there. Dana's jaw tightened. If it's legitimate, it's disclosed. If it's hidden, it's omitted. She looked at me. "This is intentional." My throat went dry. Dana started reconciling what they disclosed with what we'd already found. The numbers didn't match. There were gaps, clean gaps, the kind someone thinks no one will notice. Dana's voice lowered. "Okay, this is the moment where the case turns, not emotionally, procedurally." I stared at the omissions, my heart hammering. Because this wasn't a misunderstanding. This was concealment, and concealment meant leverage. If this story is hitting close to home, I hope you'll stick around because what happens next is worth every second. Drop a like if you're rooting for me. It means the world. Dana's hand stayed steady on the keyboard. "Next rung," she said. 6 smoking gun. "We need something explicit," she said. "An email, an invoice, a memo line that ties Brielle to Blue Harbor. Something that makes denial impossible." I swallowed. "How do we get that without dirty hands?" Dana finished. She nodded once. We let Lauren get it." As if the universe heard her, my phone buzzed. An email from Lauren. Subject line, response to discovery, next steps. I opened it with shaking fingers. Lauren wrote, "They omitted an entity we believe exists. I'm filing a motion to compel, and I'm making targeted subpoena requests based on identifiers you provided. Identifiers, our spreadsheet, our quiet work." Lauren continued. "Also, someone inside his office reached out to my paralegal. Not by name. No details yet. Just an offer. A clean chronology of transactions and identifiers for originals." My breath caught. Dana leaned in, reading over my shoulder. Her voice was a whisper. "That's her." I stared at the email. "Janet," I whispered. Dana nodded slowly. "That's a witness. That's the inside map." My pulse hammered, not with triumph, with terror. Because witnesses don't reach out unless something has become unbearable. And if Janet was reaching out, it meant Derek wasn't just hiding money. He was pressuring people to help him hide it. Lauren's last line was simple, and it felt like a fuse being lit. "Do not contact anyone directly. I will handle this formally. Stay calm, stay boring, we're close." I stared at the screen. Close. That word didn't feel comforting. It felt like standing at the edge of something that would change everything. Because I knew what came next. If Janet gave Lauren the map, Lauren would pull the originals legally. And when those originals hit the courtroom table, Derek's story wouldn't just crack, it would collapse. And somewhere inside that collapse, inside one explicit email, one coded expense, one undeniable line, Grant Holloway's face would turn white. When Lauren said, "We're close," I didn't feel relief. I felt my body go cold in the specific way it goes cold right before something breaks. Because Derek Ashford didn't lose gracefully. He didn't lose quietly. He lost like a man trying to pull the whole room down with him. And now, with a motion to compel pending and targeted subpoenas on the way, Derek was about to realize the thing he feared most. He wasn't controlling the paperwork anymore. Friday, March 11th, 2022, 7:08 a.m. Derek woke up early and performed normalcy too hard. He made coffee loudly. He asked Sophie questions in a voice that sounded like he was narrating for an invisible judge. "Did you sleep okay, sweetheart? Are you breathing better today? Do you need anything?" Sophie answered with one-word replies and kept her eyes on me, always me first. Derek turned to me, mug in hand. "So," he said, casual, "what's your lawyer doing?" My stomach tightened. I kept my face neutral. "I don't know." He smiled like he didn't believe me. "Grant says you're pushing for discovery," he said. and his voice carried that faint edge of amusement he used when he wanted to make me feel small. That's ambitious. Dana's warning echoed. He's baiting you. So I did what Lauren taught me. I shrugged, small. I'm just doing what I'm told. Derek watched my face like a man watching a door for movement. When he didn't see panic, his smile tightened. You know, he said softly, judges don't like women who get obsessive. I kept my voice low. Okay, he blinked, irritated by my lack of reaction. Then he leaned closer and lowered his voice into something almost kind, dangerous kindness. Rachel, he murmured, take the settlement. For Sophie, don't make this uglier. My hands curled under the table. Because he didn't mean for Sophie. He meant for him. But I nodded again, like a tired woman. And Derek left the kitchen satisfied, believing I was shrinking, which was exactly what Lauren wanted. At 9:42 a.m., Lauren emailed. Motion to compel filed. Subpoenas drafted. Hearing scheduled in 10 days. 10 days. A short fuse. Dana stared at the screen, then at me. He's going to move money. My throat tightened. But the restraining provisions. Dana shook her head. He'll try anyway. Or he'll backdate. Or he'll recode. People who conceal always think they can outpace paper. Dana opened the spreadsheet and pointed to the most repeated outgoing wires. Blue Harbor. She circled the line items again. If he feels heat, she said quietly, he'll try to clean this. Clean. That word again, like laundering, but with ink. Monday, March 14th, 6:55 p.m. Lauren's paralegal called Dana, not me. That was deliberate. Lauren wanted everything to stay clean. Ms. Whitaker, the paralegal said, voice careful. We received an offer from an individual with knowledge of Mr. Ashford's internal records. Dana glanced at me, eyes sharp, and put the call on speaker. What kind of offer? Dana asked. A chronology, the paralegal replied. Identifiers for transactions, invoice numbers, email subject lines, vendor names, enough to target subpoenas and authenticate originals. Dana's jaw tightened. Do we know who it is? No, the paralegal said. They refuse to identify themselves yet. My pulse hammered. Dana's tone stayed calm. Okay, tell them this. If they provide a map, counsel will obtain originals legally. Their identity can remain protected as much as the law allows, but no one is to send stolen files to us. There was a pause. Then the paralegal said, Understood. We already said that. They insisted they weren't sending stolen files. They said they're providing a map. A map. My throat tightened, because I knew exactly what kind of person used language like that. Someone careful. Someone who'd been watching for a long time. Someone inside Derek's office, Janet Miles. 2 days later, Lauren called me directly. Rachel, she said, I'm meeting the individual tomorrow at my office. My stomach flipped. You think it's Janet? I'm not guessing, Lauren said. I'm preparing. What do I do? I whispered. Nothing, Lauren replied. You do not contact anyone. You do not show up. You do not text. You stay boring. I swallowed hard. Okay, Lauren's voice lowered. And Rachel, if the map is real, it will change everything. But it also means Derek has crossed lines inside his own operation. People don't risk this unless they're scared. I felt my skin go cold. Scared of him? I asked. Lauren paused. Scared of what he's making them do. Then she hung up. Wednesday, March 16th, 2022. 3:22 p.m. Dana and I sat at my kitchen table pretending to be normal while waiting for Lauren's call. Sophie colored quietly. The humidifier hummed. The house smelled faintly of soup. Derek wasn't home, but his presence was, like the air still belonged to him. My phone buzzed at 3:41. Lauren. Her voice was controlled, but I could hear the shift. Not excitement. Precision. Rachel, she said, the map is real. My throat tightened. It was Janet. Lauren didn't confirm the name. She didn't have to. She provided a timeline, Lauren continued, with transfer identifiers, invoice numbers, vendor names, and email subject lines. Clean enough to target subpoenas and to show the judge a pattern of concealment. Dana covered her mouth with her hand, eyes wide. Lauren's tone stayed flat. And Rachel, it's worse than we thought. My stomach dropped. How? Lauren took one breath. Blue Harbor wasn't just used for a relationship, she said. It was used as a conduit, a staging entity. Money moved in and out in a way that suggests concealment not only from you, but potentially from business partners and tax authorities, Dana whispered. Oh my God, Lauren continued. She also provided a summary sheet, expense categories tied to Blue Harbor that match payments we already saw: lease, vehicle, jewelry, furnishings, travel, all coded as client retention or client entertainment. My hands went numb. The words client retention made my stomach churn because Derek had always said it like it was just business. Lauren's voice cut through my silence. I'm filing a supplemental motion, she said, and I'm preparing 3 sets of exhibits, one for the family court, one for the IRS referral packet, and one for your husband's partners. Not filed, prepared. Timing matters. My pulse hammered. Partners. Lauren's voice stayed calm. If partners are victims, they show up, and they don't clap for Derek. I swallowed hard. What do? I asked again, voice thin. Lauren answered without hesitation. You do nothing visible, she said. You let Derek keep believing this is still about your instability. Then she added, sharper, because if he thinks he's losing on paper, he'll try to win with pressure. As if on cue, my phone vibrated with a text from Derek. We need to talk tonight. No lawyer, just you and me. My blood went cold. Dana leaned in, reading it. Another text came immediately. This ends now, Rachel. Don't make me do something I don't want to do. My throat tightened. Dana whispered. Screenshot. I did. Lauren heard my breathing change. What is it? He's texting me, I said, voice shaking. He wants to talk. No lawyer, and he's threatening. Lauren's tone went colder. Do not meet him alone. Do not engage. Forward those texts. I forwarded them instantly. Lauren exhaled once. Rachel, this is escalation. Document everything. If he shows up aggressive, call me. If he lays a hand on you, call the police, but do not react emotionally. My hands were ice cold. Lauren continued. We are days away from forcing disclosure. He's trying to regain narrative control. I stared at the texts, my heart pounding. Dana's voice was low. He's scared, Lauren agreed. Yes. And then she said the sentence that made me realize the next 10 days would be the most dangerous part of the entire case. People like Derek don't panic because they're innocent, Lauren said quietly. They panic because the paper is about to speak. That evening, Derek came home at 7:36 p.m. with a calmness that didn't match his texts. He smiled at Sophie. He asked about her coloring. He kissed her forehead like a man practicing for court. Then, after Sophie went upstairs, he stood in the kitchen doorway and looked at me. His eyes weren't warm. They were calculating. You and I, he said softly, are going to fix this. I kept my face neutral. There's nothing to fix. Derek's smile tightened. Don't be stubborn. He took one step closer. My body tensed. Dana was in the living room, silent but present, close enough to hear, far enough to not be obvious. Derek lowered his voice. Grant says you're digging into my business. I shrugged, small. I'm following my lawyer. His jaw flexed. Lauren Prescott. The way he said her name was pure irritation. Then he leaned in and said, almost gently, I can make this easy for you. My throat tightened. How? Derek's eyes narrowed. You sign. You stop digging. You keep Sophie. You get a check. And you never speak my name with suspicion again. Suspicion. He didn't say truth, because he didn't care about truth. He cared about silence. I stared at him, heart pounding. And in that moment, I realized something that made my skin go cold. Derek wasn't negotiating. He was offering terms, like a man who believed he still owned the room. And the fact that he wanted it quiet, no lawyers, meant he was terrified of paper. Dana's voice carried from the living room, calm and sharp. Rachel, she called gently. Sophie needs her meds. A lifesaver sentence. A reset. I nodded once. I'm coming. Derek's eyes flashed. Anger, then control. Fine, he said. But this isn't over. I walked away without running, without slamming anything, without giving him the satisfaction of drama. Because in 10 days, the drama would not come from my mouth. It would come from his own documents. At 10:58 p.m., Sophie was asleep again. Dana sat at the table with the spreadsheet open and Lauren's email printed beside it. Dana whispered, "The hearing, the motion to compel, the subpoenas." I stared at the words and felt the open loop tightening into a knot, because the next step was the one Derek couldn't survive. The originals, invoices, transfers, emails, not summaries, not polished disclosures, the real paper. And when that paper hit the court record, there would be no charming judge, no smirking lawyer, no mother clapping in the hallway. There would only be truth. And for the first time, I understood why Lauren was so careful with timing. Because you don't drop a bomb early if the enemy can run. You drop it when the door is closed. And he has nowhere left to smile. The 10 days between Lauren's motion to compel and the final hearing felt like living inside a clock. Every hour was a countdown. Every text from Derek was a test. Every cough from Sophie was a reminder of what the stakes really were. And the strangest part was that Derek seemed calmer on the surface, like a man who believed that if he stayed pleasant enough, the world would bend back into place. But I'd seen that calm before. It wasn't peace, it was containment, the kind a predator uses right before the strike. Thursday, March 24th, 2022, 8:47 a.m. The courthouse hallway smelled faintly of old paper and floor polish. Lauren met us outside courtroom 4B with a rolling case. Black, sturdy, the kind you see in corporate litigation. She looked at me once and said, "Today, you do nothing except breathe and look boring." Dana stood beside me, silent, steady. My hands were cold, but my mind felt strangely clear. Not because I wasn't afraid, because the work was already done. The numbers had already spoken. The only thing left was to arrange them in order. Grant Holloway was already there, smiling like the courtroom was his second home. Derek sat next to him, posture relaxed, one hand on the table like he owned it. Marilyn sat behind them, dressed like this was church. She was leaning slightly forward, phone in hand, like she expected a victory update. And Derek glanced at me and gave me that familiar, patronizing half smile, the smile that said, "You'll break first?" Lauren didn't greet them. She didn't smile. She walked past like they were furniture. Grant's eyes tracked the rolling case. His smile held, but the skin around his eyes tightened, because he could feel it too. A case that heavy meant something inside was sharp. We were called in at 9:31 a.m. Judge Katherine Monroe took the bench with the same expression she always had, controlled impatience for nonsense. "Counsel," she said, "we are here on dissolution, financial disclosures, and related relief. I understand there are allegations of concealment." Grant stood first, smooth as ever. "Your Honor," he began, "Mrs. Bennett has engaged in a fishing expedition fueled by bitterness. We have provided disclosures. This is a straightforward divorce complicated by emotion." Lauren stood, and the air shifted. "Your Honor," she said calmly, "this is not about emotion. This is about traceable separate funds used to acquire the marital home, undisclosed assets exceeding $600,000, and deliberate misclassification of personal expenditures as business deductions." Grant's smile tightened. Judge Monroe's gaze sharpened. "Proceed, Miss Prescott." Lauren lifted her hand, 3 fingers. "We will prove 3 things today," she said, voice steady. 1. The down payment for the home was Mrs. Bennett's separate inheritance, titled away from her through deception. 2. Mr. Ashford concealed substantial assets through undisclosed accounts and a Delaware entity. And 3. He used that system to fund an extramarital relationship and coded those expenses as client retention, creating tax exposure and demonstrating bad faith. Grant stood. Objection. Argumentative. Speculative. Judge Monroe cut him off. Overruled. "Present your evidence." Lauren didn't rush. She started where judges live. Paper. 1. The house. The cleanest lie. Lauren placed the first exhibit on the clerk's table. "This is the estate distribution wire from Mrs. Bennett's grandmother," Lauren said. "Amount, $175,000 wire." She placed the second exhibit. "This is the closing statement showing receipt of that wire into escrow for the down payment." Third exhibit. This is the deed, Lauren said, titled solely in Mr. Ashford's name. The courtroom was silent except for page turns. Lauren's voice stayed calm. Mrs. Bennett trusted her husband during a medically vulnerable period. Mr. Ashford told her it was simpler to title solely in his name. Grant shifted. Judge Monroe looked up. Mr. Holloway, does your client dispute the source of funds? Grant's smile thinned. Your Honor, funds deposited into a marital home. Lauren cut in. Traceable separate inheritance remains traceable unless commingled beyond recognition. This was a direct wire. It is not ambiguous. Judge Monroe's pen moved. Lauren turned slightly toward Derek. Mr. Ashford, she said, you told this court the house was yours because it was titled in your name. Derek answered, confident. Correct? Lauren nodded once. And you did not disclose that the down payment came from your wife's inheritance. Derek's jaw flexed. It was... Lauren's voice stayed calm. It was a wire from an estate distribution account. Not your income. Not joint savings. Her inheritance. Judge Monroe's jaw tightened. Marilyn's posture shifted slightly behind Derek. Not outrage, unease, because Marilyn understood inheritance, and she understood what theft looked like when it wore a wedding ring. 2. The hidden assets. The system. Lauren placed a new stack on the table. These are bank statements from an account not disclosed in Mr. Ashford's financial affidavit. Grant stood fast. Your Honor, foundation. Lauren didn't blink. The account was discovered in shared household files. In addition, these statements align with Mr. Ashford's transaction history and vendor payments. Judge Monroe looked at Grant. Do the accounts exist? Grant paused, half a second too long. Then, there may be accounts associated with business operations. Lauren's voice was flat. Not disclosed. She held up a summary sheet. Total inflows and transfers exceeding $600,000 within the relevant period, omitted from the affidavit. Derek's face tightened. Lauren continued, and repeated outgoing wires to Blue Harbor Strategies LLC, a Delaware entity omitted entirely from disclosure. Judge Monroe looked up. Blue Harbor was disclosed? Grant forced smoothness. It is a business entity. Lauren cut in again. Not disclosed. Judge Monroe's pen moved. She looked directly at Derek. Mr. Ashford, she said, were you aware you were required to disclose all accounts and entities? Derek tried to sound composed. I disclosed what my attorney advised. Judge Monroe's eyes hardened. That is not an answer. Derek swallowed. Yes. Grant's jaw tightened. The second door locked behind Derek. 3. The misclassified expenses. The fatal detail. Lauren didn't begin with Brielle's face. She began with Brielle's cost, because court doesn't punish affairs. Court punishes fraud. Lauren placed a single-page expense summary on the clerk's table. Blue Harbor expense categories, she said. Lease payments, vehicle payments, jewelry, furnishings, travel. Grant stood. Your Honor, prejudicial. Lauren's voice stayed calm. Verified by targeted subpoenas to vendors and property managers, based on transaction identifiers provided during discovery. Judge Monroe's eyes narrowed. Proceed. Lauren placed a lease payment record on the table. This is a lease payment processed for a luxury apartment address, Lauren said. Then a vehicle payment schedule, then a jewelry invoice, then travel expenses, each labeled as business, each coded as client retention or client entertainment. Grant's face stayed composed, but the muscle near his cheek tightened. Derek's posture stiffened. Lauren turned toward Derek. Mr. Ashford, she said, did you pay for Miss Brielle Carter's residence through Blue Harbor? Derek scoffed. No. Lauren nodded like she expected the lie. Then she placed the last exhibit on the table. Not dramatic, not screamed, just final. An email header and printout obtained through subpoena. Lauren read one sentence, calmly, like a coroner reading cause of death. Run Brielle through Blue Harbor. Code as client retention. No one audits retention. The room went still, and that's when it happened. His lawyer's face went white. Completely white, like someone had drained all the blood right out of him. Grant Holloway's fingers trembled as he flipped the page like he was hoping the ink would change. Derek's confident smirk melted away like ice cream on a hot sidewalk. Pure terror replaced it, because he understood now. This wasn't Rachel is emotional. This wasn't Rachel is unstable. This was subpoenaed paper, verified vendors, a coded system, an explicit instruction, and that one sentence didn't just damage the divorce case. It opened the door to tax fraud. Judge Monroe's voice was low. "Mr. Ashford," she said, "did you write this?" Derek's eyes flicked toward Grant like a child looking for an adult to save him. Grant didn't move, because Grant wasn't saving him anymore. Grant was calculating fallout. Judge Monroe repeated, sharper, "Yes or no?" Derek swallowed hard. "Yes," he whispered. Silence. Not dramatic, just the quiet of a room where denial dies. Judge Monroe looked down at her notes, then back up. "Mr. Holloway," she said, "this court does not tolerate concealment and perjury." Grant tried to stand. "Your Honor, even if there were accounting errors." Judge Monroe's gaze cut him off. "Errors do not omit entities. Errors do not terminate a medically vulnerable child's coverage during active treatment. Errors do not instruct misclassification in writing." She turned to Lauren. "Requested relief?" Lauren's voice was steady. "Full legal and physical custody to Mrs. Bennett," she said. "Child support recalculated based on actual income and cash flow. Medical coverage restored immediately and retroactively." Judge Monroe nodded once. Lauren continued, "The marital home transferred to Mrs. Bennett due to traced separate funds and bad faith titling." Judge Monroe's pen moved. "And due to concealment and perjury," Lauren finished. 70% of marital assets awarded to Mrs. Bennett." Marilyn made a small sound behind Derek, like she'd swallowed a gasp. Judge Monroe's voice stayed cold and precise. "Mrs. Bennett will have full legal and physical custody of Sophie," she said. "Child support will be recalculated using actual income and cash flow. Medical coverage will be restored immediately and retroactively." My throat tightened. "The marital home will be transferred into Mrs. Bennett's name due to traced separate inheritance funds and bad faith titling." My eyes stung. "And due to concealment and perjury, this court awards 70% of the marital assets to Mrs. Bennett." Derek's face went gray. Grant's jaw clenched. Judge Monroe added, "The court will issue referrals as appropriate." Her gaze slid to Derek. "You attempted to weaponize stability while creating instability," she said, voice cutting. "This court is not your stage." Then the gavel came down, and the verdict didn't feel like fireworks. It felt like a deep breath I'd been holding for months, finally leaving my lungs. In the hallway, Derek didn't walk like a winner. He didn't even walk like a man who lost. He walked like a man who suddenly remembered he had a body. Grant pulled him aside, voice low and sharp, not comforting, urgent. Dana squeezed my shoulder, and her grip was the only thing keeping me from shaking. Lauren didn't smile. She leaned close and whispered, "Don't celebrate yet." My stomach flipped. "Why?" Lauren's eyes flicked toward the far end of the hallway, where two men in suits stood near the elevator. Quiet, controlled, watching. Not family court people, business people, partners. The kind who don't clap, they calculate. One of them stepped forward and spoke to Derek in a voice too calm to be friendly. "We need to talk. Now." Derek stopped walking. His face changed. Recognition, then fear. Because you can bully a spouse, you can smear a mother, but you can't charm your way out of people who believe you stole from them. Lauren guided me away, voice low. "That," she said, "is why we timed it." My throat tightened. Because the court wasn't the end. It was the public beginning. And Derek was about to learn the last rule of systems. When one part collapses, everything connected collapses too. That night, Sophie slept in my bed, her breathing steady under the humidifier's soft hum. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. Silence. Not the silence of fear, the silence of ownership. But even in that silence, one open loop remained. Lauren had warned me years later Derek would ask for one meeting before things become public. And now, watching his world unravel in real time, I finally understood why. Because the moment the paper spoke in court, Derek's story stopped being his. And the truth, quiet, documented, inevitable, was about to reach everyone else. The night after the ruling, I didn't sleep like a woman who'd won. I slept like a woman who'd survived a house fire and was still smelling smoke in her hair. Sophie's breathing was steady beside me, humidifier humming, nebulizer kit cleaned and lined up on the dresser like a ritual of safety. And even though the court had spoken, my nervous system didn't believe it yet, because Derek hadn't just threatened my finances. He had threatened our stability. He had tried to rewrite reality, and even after a judge called him out, the part of me that had lived under his control kept waiting for the next blow. But the next blow didn't come from Derek. It came from the world Derek had been lying to. Monday, March 28, 2022, 9:14 a.m. Lauren called. Her voice was calm, but it carried a new weight, like she was reading from a script written by consequences. "They served him," she said. My throat tightened. "Who?" "His partners," Lauren replied. "Civil claims, emergency injunction requests. They're alleging misappropriation and concealment." I stared at my kitchen window where sunlight was landing on the same counter Derek had used as a stage. "What about the IRS?" I asked, and I hated that my voice sounded small. Lauren's pause was short, professional. "Referrals are moving," she said. "That's all I can say right now. Referrals are moving." Translation. The machinery had started. I swallowed hard. "So it's real." Lauren's tone didn't change. It was always real. It just wasn't public yet. I closed my eyes, because part of me had still hoped this could end quietly. Not for Derek's sake. For Sophie's. For the fragile normal I was trying to build. Lauren spoke again, softer but firm. "Rachel, Derek may contact you soon," she said. Not to apologize. To manage narrative. My stomach dropped. "What do I do if he calls?" Lauren didn't hesitate. "You don't take calls. If he needs to communicate, he does it through counsel. And if you choose to meet him for closure later, it's on your terms. Public place, short duration, and never alone." Closure. The word tasted strange, because closure wasn't something Derek had ever given me. It was something I would have to take. Thursday, April 7th, 2022, 6:17 p.m. The house felt different now. Not because the furniture changed, because the air did. Sophie was at the kitchen table drawing. She drew our porch swing, and she drew herself and me on it, and she drew the humidifier like it was part of the family. Dana sat across from her, pretending not to watch her too closely. But I saw it. Dana had become part of our stability. The doorbell rang. My body tensed automatically. Dana's eyes flicked up. I checked the peephole. Not Derek. A courier. My pulse eased slightly. I opened the door and accepted a thick envelope. No return address, just a law firm logo. Lauren's. Inside was a copy of the finalized temporary orders, the property transfer paperwork in progress, and a short note in Lauren's clean handwriting. "You're safe on paper. Now build safety in your routine." My throat tightened. Safe on paper. It was the truest phrase anyone had said to me in months. 3 years later, I would still remember that line. Because paper is what saved us. Not tears, not speeches. Paper. And that's why the next moment mattered so much. Because it wasn't about court anymore. It was about the part of my life Derek had colonized emotionally. The part he still thought he could access whenever he wanted. 3 years later, Tuesday, 6:17 a.m. The phone rang exactly at 6:17 a.m. Again, same time as the first call. Different day, different life. I was standing in my kitchen in a robe, coffee brewing, listening to Sophie's humidifier in the next room like a quiet metronome of peace. The caller ID read, Lauren Prescott. My stomach tightened anyway. I answered. "Rachel," Lauren said, voice controlled, "I need you to hear this from me before you hear it from anyone else." Even 3 years later, those words pulled me straight back. "Okay," I whispered. "What is it?" Lauren exhaled once. "The federal process has advanced," she said, "and Derek has asked to meet you, one time, before certain things become public." I stared at the counter where Sophie's inhaler still sat, now more out of habit than necessity. "Why?" I asked softly. Lauren's voice was steady. "Because he's cornered, and when he's cornered, he wants to control the story." I swallowed. "Do I have to?" "No," Lauren said immediately. "You owe him nothing." Silence. Then Lauren added something that surprised me. But, she said carefully, if you want closure, real closure, it's possible to do it safely. On your terms. On your terms. Those words landed like a door opening. Not for Derek. For me. I didn't decide quickly. I didn't do it emotionally. I did it like Lauren taught me, with conditions. A conference room at Lauren's building. Lauren one door away. A fixed time limit. No surprises. No improvisation. Because the version of me who used to just talk with Derek didn't exist anymore. That woman had been too easy to bend. Friday, 2 Keys Peak M. Derek was already seated when I entered the conference room. He looked older. Not tragic. Not sympathetic. Just drained of performance. His suit was still expensive, but it hung slightly differently now, like he'd lost something inside himself that used to fill it. His eyes lifted when he saw me. For a second, I saw the old instinct in him. Charm. The reflex smile. Then it flickered and died. Because charm doesn't work on someone who has already seen the paperwork. "Rachel," he said quietly. I sat across from him, hands folded, posture straight. "Derek," I said. He swallowed, eyes searching mine like he was looking for a soft place to land. "I'm not here to fight," he said. I kept my voice calm. "Then be direct." His jaw tightened. He looked down at the table. "I'm losing everything," he said. I didn't respond. He tried again, voice cracking slightly. "There are things coming," he said. "Public things. And Sophie," my chest tightened. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't have to. "You don't get to use her name as leverage," I said, tone flat. Derek flinched. "I'm not," he began. I held up a hand. "No," I said. "You are. You always did. You used her lungs. You used stability. You used money. And now you're using public like I should rescue you from consequences." Derek's throat worked. His eyes shone like he wanted pity. I didn't give it. Derek whispered, "I'm sorry." I studied him. Not with hatred, with measurement. "I believe you're sorry now," I said quietly, "because now you're the one who's scared." Derek's face tightened, like the truth hurt more than accusation. He opened his mouth, closed it, then said, "What do you want from me?" That question, finally, was honest, and my answer was simple. "Put it in writing," I said. Derek blinked. "What?" "The truth," I said, "that you terminated Sophie's coverage, that you threatened me, that you lied in disclosures, that you coded personal spending as business, not for court. Court already spoke." Derek's throat moved. "Why?" I leaned in just slightly, voice still calm. "Because Sophie deserves a life where no one tells her she imagined it," I said. "Where no one tells her her mother was unstable and her father was a hero. Where truth is documented." Derek's eyes filled. He nodded once, small. "Okay," he whispered. I watched him. For a moment, something in my chest loosened. Not because he deserved mercy, because I was taking my power back in the cleanest way possible. On paper. Derek lifted his eyes again, voice thin. "Will you come again?" he asked. The old me might have hesitated. The old me might have tried to be kind, but kindness without boundaries is just another door. So I answered with the calm that had saved me. "No," I said gently. "One meeting. That's all." Derek's face crumpled. He didn't argue, because he couldn't. He didn't have leverage anymore, only consequences. I stood. "Rachel," he whispered, voice breaking. "I never meant—" I cut him off with the simplest boundary I'd ever spoken. "Intent doesn't erase harm," I said quietly. Then I turned toward the door, and as I walked out, I didn't feel triumph. I felt peace, not because Derek suffered, but because I didn't let him take one more inch of my life. That night, Sophie was on the couch with a book, her hair pulled back, inhaler beside her like a tool, not a symbol. She looked up. "How was it?" I sat beside her and wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "I handled it," I said softly. "On our terms." Sophie leaned into me. And the house my grandmother's money helped buy, the house Derek tried to steal with a smile, felt like ours in a way it never had before, because paper gave me the keys, but boundaries gave me the home. Thanks so much for watching. More of my most gripping stories are already on your screen. Click one now and don't miss the best part. You will love it. See you in the next story.